The common myth is that money is the cure to a poverty mindset. And so someone who doesn't have money can sometimes seem like they have a mindset of poverty. But the truth is, the only thing that breaks the yoke of poverty in someone's mind is abundance. So people that have poverty tend to hoard up things and store things and think that there's a lack, right? There's only so much booze in this, right? They don't realize there's a whole shelf here and I can go to the store and get a whole bunch more, right? They think there's only this many books and so they want to take two of the three. If you'll let them, they'll take all three if you'll let them. Does that make sense? And so the challenge is that the only way you really break off the poverty mentality is you have to center somebody in a place of abundance. Now, the challenge is if someone lives in a place of poverty where everybody else has that same mindset, it's very difficult for them to see any abundance around them, right? Everything is scarce. There's only so much food, there's only so much money, there's only so much housing, there's only so much nice cars. And so they think there's a limitation, right? That's actually a lie. Back in 2017, when I got this statistic when I lived in eastern North Carolina along the seaboard, it's a very interesting area. It has an economically diverse area, but there are some definitely socioeconomic depressed areas. They just don't have a lot. And in this community, I got this message that said, and I heard this statistic from a friend of mine that said 57% of all children were in a place of food scarcity. And food scarcity was just defined as they didn't know where they were going to get their next meal. So let me repeat that. 57% of the kids in that community didn't know where they're going to get their next meal. Now, you talk about scarcity and you talk about a poverty mindset. If you don't know where you're getting your next meal, that'll create an incredible amount of poverty, right? Well, two things that happened. First off, that it shocked me because that's 60% basically, right? But more importantly, it angered me. And deep down, it pissed me off, just to be quite honest with you, that I lived in America, in a first world nation where there's abundance everywhere, where 60% of the kids that I live around don't know where they're going to get their next meal. So, what I've discovered is a lot of times the things that anger you, the things that really bother you, could be the very things that you're designed to solve. And being a problem solver, first thing I did was I went down to the local food bank with a couple friends of mine inside of an organization that I was a part of. And this food bank was set up during one of the major hurricanes that had happened a few years earlier. So a lot of those hurricanes make landfall right there at the eastern North Carolina coastline and just decimate things. And it's very difficult to get food and anything. So they set up this food bank. Well, what a food bank is from like a state or federal or even local level is they bring in all this food and then they take that food and they distribute it to local distribution centers, right? They're not an actual distribution center, meaning they're not bringing the food in and then if you're hungry, you go down there and get food. They distribute it to the places that give the food out. Does that make sense? And so before I met with them, I was kind of in this time of prayer and meditation about it. Like, I can solve this. Like, I need to figure out how to solve this. This can't be that hard of a problem to solve. And as I went down to the food pantry, in my mind, I kept thinking nobody should go hungry. Like that was kind of the mantra in my head. No, nobody should go hungry. Nobody should be hungry. Like in America, it's ridiculous, right? And so as I went down to this food pantry, sat down with the head of the division there, and there's a big warehouse that had food coming in and out, trucks moving in and out, semis coming, and on the banner there it said their mission statement was nobody should go hungry. Right? You ever have one of those moments when you're like the serendipity of what you're thinking and praying and meditating on all of a sudden is manifested or literally visualized and in a word and in picture. So I knew it was in the right place, the right time, with the right message, with the right amount of anger and frustration to solve a problem. And so I asked the head of that department, like, what's the challenge? Like, why are there kids here that are hungry? And she knew the statistic as well as I did. Why are 56% or 57% of these kids not aware where they're going to get their next meal? And she said what ends up happening is they get their food on distributed to local churches and nonprofit organizations on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all those places are closed, and so those children don't know where they're going to eat Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday a lot of times, and so the weekends go unmet for people in need. And I said, well, I asked this lady, I said, well, you guys don't distribute it direct to the people. What would you do? How would you handle this? She's like, it's easy. I would open someplace up on a Friday night and give them enough food for the weekend. Problem solved, right? So I worked with our organization. We had a huge church building in a big centralized part of town. It had about 4,000 square feet in the back, and the entire group decided that we would turn that into like a Costco type of vibe, right? So we bought the pallet racking, and you store the food because this food would come in pallets, right? And you'd order it by the semi full. I mean, the trailer load full, 53-foot long trailer that you see driving down the road just full of food. And as I contacted those groups, found out that you could get a trailer load full for about $5,000. Now that thing's packed from brim to rim, from front to back, chock full of food. As I discovered that, it ended up working out to be like, I think it was like $1 something a meal that you could feed a family for like less than $1 a meal, like 50 cents a meal. It was ridiculous, right? So it wasn't about getting food. It wasn't about distribution. It was about the timing of it, right? So there were other organizations that were bringing in food. There was other organizations that were giving it out, but these kids are going hungry because they don't have food for the weekend. Think about that. So what I discovered was we brought in all these people. We decided to market it, Facebook, social media, all your marketing agencies, and we launched this out saying, come down to this food pantry called Feed Craven, right? And the entire organization we had there was probably 20 to 50 volunteers that just pulled this thing off. Everything from setting up the Costco-like warehouse, the food, the check-in system, the entire process, right? The shopping carts, we had to have forklifts, we had to buy coolers, we had to buy freezers, you know. So we put all this together and we started bringing people into the food pantry on a Friday night. And as we're checking everybody in, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that these people had more of an experience than they did just get like feel like shameful of their poverty. Listen, when you're in poverty, you're already shameful enough. You're a little bit shamed of where you're at. And if you don't have shame, then it's even a deeper issue. There should be a healthy level of shame there, not a, we don't need to add to it, right? No need to pile on shame to someone who's already feeling rightfully shameful because of the situation they're in. So we decided what we would do is we'd bring them in, we'd get those big Costco shopping carts. It feels like you could put an elephant in. And our team would volunteer. They would put the food in the cart for the person. So all the person had to do, come in, check in, sign their name, go back, get assigned a shopper. The guest would push the cart and we would fill it up. They would just point like, I want that, that looks good. Can you get me that from up there? And we would just fill the cart up with them. So this is the interesting part. So here it is, all these people coming in. First night we had, I think, 100 and some families show up, which was epic. I mean, there was people lined up around the building, right? And so people are walking through, and I would be kind of more like in a managerial role, just make sure everybody's doing okay, problem solving. And I was watching people go through, and they'd be like, is it okay if I get like 2 of those? Or one big thing was like soap. I didn't realize how what a need soap was. So like Dove soap had a big package that we had there, pallets full of it, right? So can I get 2? Can I get 3? Can I get 4? Right? Again, someone who's kind of in lack is just like, give me as much as you'll give me, right? And so as they're going through, we wrap up the end of the night on the first night, and my team is coming together, and we kind of have a debriefing. And the team of volunteers, these are awesome people, but they are livid. Some of them are absolutely frustrated. Like, Brent, I just don't understand. We have a major problem here. There's such a greed there. And I remember I was filling up this one lady's thing, and she just kept asking for more. And then I wheel it out there, and I put it in the back of an Escalade, right? And I'm just listening to everybody's problem, everybody's challenges with how this is working. I gave it to one, and then they wanted 10. I asked, they wanted 2. They kept asking for more. They kept asking for more. And they're like, we have to put a limit on things. This is what I realized. That poverty mindset wasn't necessarily only in the people that were coming to get served, but in those that were serving. That my own people had a lack of abundance in their own minds, thinking that there's only so much of it, that it's unfair to stick all this free stuff in the back of an Escalade, right? And I said, I was teaching in this moment. I realized this moment was a teachable moment. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life who's in the back, that's the Escalade driver. She might be going home to 5 kids, 2 cousins, some kids she's taking care of. She might be in a home that she can't even afford to live in. She doesn't have furniture in it. She definitely can't even pay the light bill, and she's trying to put food on the table. You have no clue. Never judge. You don't know what someone's going through. If they're humble enough to come there to get food in that environment, then we have to be humble enough to serve them out of our abundant heart. So this is what I discovered to do. The solution to our own internal poverty mindset. If we come in and we're serving those people and they want 2, give them 4. If they ask for 5, give them 10. If they ask for 10, give them 20. If they ask for 20, give them 70. No matter what they're asking for, give them more than what they're asking for, and ask them again, are you sure you don't want more? Because in that overflow of abundance, it breaks off the mindset of poverty. For the first time in their life, there's more than enough. When you're functioning in business or you're functioning in life or ministry or volunteering or in your community, you'll find that many people function out of a thought process that there's only so much of it to go around. It's a scarcity mindset. Scarcity and poverty are essentially the same things. Let me take you full circle. So I decided to make sure that I demonstrate this. As a good leader, you don't want to just say it, you want to actually do it. So I take one of the first people. This guy has to be 70 years old. He can barely kind of shuffle his old feet. His clothes are a little dirty and disheveled. And he grabs one of the carts and we're going through and he's pointing and he's like, can I get some of those? Yeah, how many do you want? Two, give him four. He's like, no, 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 I only need two. I'm like, we got you. You know, he really liked, ended up having like Coke had given us, huge pallet. He wanted a 12 pack. So I gave him a couple 12 packs. We get around the corner to this pallet, 4 foot by 4 foot by 6 feet tall of Peeps. Do you know what Peeps are? Peeps are that like nasty, puffy, can't, it's nasty. It's just sugar that's been turned into a marshmallow coated with sugar with a dot on it that looks like a bird. Okay? They're called Peeps. And it wasn't the good Peeps like the yellow. These are purple ones. I'm not sure if there's a knockoff Peep, but these things looked disgusting. And he said, he goes, Brent, can I get a bunch of those? I'm like, yeah, how many? He's like, and they came in cases. So you're talking like, I mean, there must have been 30 Peeps on a tray, right? And they had a little plastic wrap or cellophane wrap on the top. He's like, "Can I get like two or three of them?" I said, "Sure." And I gave him like four or five. He's like, "Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Brent." I said, "Sir, do you mind me asking what these are for?" This gets me every time. And he said, "Yeah, in my community, in my neighborhood, all the kids, I'm known as the guy that gives away treats. And so when all the kids that don't have anything, I give them, candy bars or something sweet just so they know that they're loved and taken care of." So that's another thing about when you give someone out of abundance, you have no idea what they're going to do with it unless you ask. And I had the fortitude to ask and the thought process to ask what he was going to do with it. Here we are, you would think in a poverty mindset, you could be thinking he's just being greedy, taking all these peeps, that he's got some sort of peep addiction, right? But in the meantime, he's serving his own community. His vision perfectly aligns with our vision, which was to serve that community and take care of people. Except he's going to do it better, boots on the ground. And if he can give away a pallet full of peeps and make his peeps happy in the community, then we needed to be about it. I remember telling that story, and honestly, it choked me up at the time because it even tested my own understanding of abundance. The only thing that breaks off that spirit of poverty, it's really not even a mindset, it's a spirit. You have to flood somebody with so much abundance that the spirit of poverty gets broken off their life and they can go from thinking about Peeps or Coke or shampoo or Dove soap and abundance coming at them to maybe rethinking their entire life and snapping out of this idea and this spiritual mindset of poverty and realizing that there is more than enough, that there's way more than enough. There's always been more than enough. And all you have to do is and get yourself in an environment that breaks that off.